Hi, Erin. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're super excited to have you here. So, I want you just to share a little bit about what you're doing now, your practice, and what it looks like, and then we'll move on from there.
Okay, so I've been doing home mods since about 2000. I started it when I realized my grandmother, who was 95 at the time and living with my parents, she didn't need a new sweater for independence. Like she needed more help in my parents' home for her to have an improved quality of life. So I took the CAPS course back then. So I've been CAPS certified now for about 25 years. And my focus right now is helping adult, primarily professional daughters of aging parents help their parents maintain their independence and safety in their home. However, I do have another part of my practice that works in um, workers' comp, catastrophic injuries, with people who have had some type of catastrophic brain injury, spinal cord injury, because I am an assistive technology specialist and a seating and mobility specialist. So while I do aging in place for adults with who are just becoming older adults, I also do it for special populations who want to age in place with a disability. And that includes children with special needs. Because I originally started out in pediatrics, and now those peds are in their 30s and 40s and want to maximize their independence in their home.
That was the surprising and fun part of my practice, was discovering that a third of it became peds and young adults, right? That was, yeah. Because we think about home mods just for aging in place, but really it's across the whole spectrum. So
It
that's,
is.
yeah. So that tells us a little bit about why you wanted to go in there, and the passion that you have coming from helping your grandmother. Mine, started right at the beginning when I had issues with family members too. But when you started, what were some of the hesitations or misconceptions that you had, and what changed?
Mm.
I know my
So
biggest one was it could be cash based, right?
right, that was a huge one, um, and I think the dichotomy in home mods is everybody thinks it's great for somebody else, and they don't always want to pay for it. Whether that's an older adult or honestly families with a young adult with special needs, they don't always have a lot of extra income.
Mhm.
So while there was great need, for me, the misconception was how to get it paid, how to make it affordable for people, and how to be profitable.
Mhm.
Um, so those were some of my biggest misconceptions, and also how to run a business. I was used to being a clinic therapist, so I kind of understood about a private practice, but making this into a business and networking with other professionals.
Yeah, that's right. Because in OT school, or if you're a PT in PT school, we don't get much in the way of how to run a business. What does it look like? What does a profit and loss statement mean? What are we looking at when we're looking at cash flow and,
Yes.
accounts and all of those pieces? So definitely learning that piece, or even I have to pay estimated taxes. What is that?
Right.
Right. Um, so while we're talking about some of those things, and we'll go on to how you resolve them later, I want to start with what's been a couple of the rewarding experiences, because I want us to focus on the very positive too. For me, it was a very positive, and I've heard that from you. So let's talk a little bit about some rewarding experiences.
Yeah, I think the biggest reward for me is going into people's homes and being able to spend time. I'm not just coming in there. I never actually worked in home health, but coming in for a 1 hour in and out visit. I can come, sit down, and listen to how people live in their homes. And then I'm a very intuitive, practical problem solver. I love solving the problem in the simplest way possible. And that's what I like, because I often feel sometimes building professionals want to over engineer something
Mm.
and maybe move a wall or do, and it's a piece of equipment or it's using Alexa or some other piece of technology. So some of my clients, what I like the most is making the recommendations and coming back and training them for that follow-up visit and seeing them be just more comfortable in their own environments and say like, oh, I didn't realize it could be this simple. I wish I had done this sooner.
That's really interesting that you say that because, again, for me as well, a lot of times it was the simple solutions. But when we go and look at the research, it's the simple solutions predominantly, unless you've had catastrophic injury, that really makes the biggest differences, right? So that is, yeah, that's just key. And there's nothing like having a family say to you, thanks, you just saved our family. You just kept our family together. You allowed us to continue to have this quality of life.
Great. And, not that there aren't male caregivers, but for me, it's been the wives, it's been the moms, it's been the other women that say, like, oh, that took such a burden off of my shoulders. Like, I'm so happy my husband can roll up to his computer now and just get on with eye gaze and start checking his email. I'm so
Mhm.
happy he has this independence. I'm so happy my child can be on a different floor than me. And I can sleep through the night knowing that they can easily call me if they need me from their bedroom downstairs.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and making a difference in the individual's lives and in the flow of the family. Um, that's been a big reward for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. I didn't realize the impact on caregivers as much as until I started actually working in this. And it's interesting, this next month, we're talking about mental health month. So I'm looking at the research right now and the quality of life for the caregiver, as well as for our focus client, and the change in anxiety and depression for both the client and the caregiver. That's one of the things that speaks out all across the research. So,
Yes. And I feel like we're the first professionals often to come in and ask the detailed questions.
mhm.
The nurse case managers do a really great job with that, especially like in catastrophic care. But still, I'm still asking, how does this flow? How do you actually help help the client in and out of the bathroom? Do they actually, oh, you lift them by yourself and you are 67 and they weigh more than 40 pounds? Oh, how's your hips? How are your shoulders? Oh, they're really hurting. I think sometimes we're the first people that go in and find out, oh, this is really unsafe for both people.
Yes, I've had so many of those situations. And often it's the young person who has now been out of school 10 years. Nobody's reviewed
Yes.
equipment. Mom is still fully, or dad are fully lifting them manually in and out of bed at 120, 140 pounds, in and out of the bathtub. And you suggest things and they're like, oh no, we're fine. But then a couple of months later, you get the phone call. So we've thought more about it. Can you come back? So yeah, it's amazing being able to make that difference. The other thing that I found is, simple things like putting in a ceiling lift, which sounds simple, but being able to have them play on the floor with siblings or with a pet or some of those things. And even for older adults to be able to get down on the floor with grandkids or a dog. Um, you know, those are really rewarding things. what really helped you shape and move your practice forward into being able to feel like you had the skills or being able to address those areas across that wide range? Because I know when I did the caps, and I'm sure for you, we only addressed seniors, and there really wasn't a lot that focused on our skills as a therapist. Um, because it was open to the kitchen cabinet salesperson. So, that's not a venue in which that can happen. So, what helped give you that confidence and move you forward? And what were the steps that you took that got you to being in that space?
Well, I think a lot of my practice over time, one, it's just been my own aging in place as a therapist, I think, that has brought me to different parts of being an OT. Um, some of it has been personal growth, acknowledging that my knowledge as an OT has um, real monetary value, and that I am often the cheapest dollar spent. So having enough self confidence to market myself and say, here's my cost, and it's valuable because I can save you money on the far end. But finally, and not just because I'm speaking with you, but I really found that the chat was the first advanced credentialing that spoke to me about creating a business, looking at different forms of payment sources. What can be cash pay? What has to be billed to Medicare? What has to be billed to Medicaid? In my state, they don't cover OT services for people on Medicaid in the home. So I am cash pay, but I didn't realize that,
Mhm.
and working with you and on the chat, I learned how to go to the source, how to figure out what I can bill, figure out what I create as a hybrid plan, because that's my personal business. That's what I market. I'm
Mhm.
not just going to come in and look around and say, throw up some grab bars and remove all those throw rugs. I'm going to create a personalized plan, and I'm going to bill Medicare for what Medicare pays for. I'm going to bill Medicaid what Medicaid pays for. And then the rest, I'm going to tell you why you need this to maximize your independence and safety in your home, or your loved one's independence and safety in your home.
that that is a really important lesson, and that is one that often we don't learn. I know even for me, it's like I thought it could all be cash paced, and I was talking to the chiropractor's wife in the office next door, and she's like, that's a Medicare client. And I was like, then I had to go digging for covered services, which is why I put the chat together, to look at what was covered. But I think one of the other things, and you brought this up, is just figuring out how to help clients get funding and how to be able to talk about that message. So, how did you address that? How did you find that in your area?
Um, well, okay, so first I had to do a lot of mentoring, business mentoring, and saying, how do I create this speech? And that I was able to do in the chat. And so once I problem solved through, what problems am I solving for the area that I'm addressing, then I'm able to take those messages out to nurse case managers, to private practice attorneys who are dealing in personal injury. I'm able to take it to um, workshops where maybe I'm presenting to parents of kids with special needs and how to think about aging. It may be a 2-year-old with cerebral palsy now. What are you going to do with that child when they're 20? or 15 or 10. You know, the bath works now, but what are we looking at down the line? And how to, the other thing I learned too is how to break it down. I mean, part of being a therapist, we don't always have to sell the whole home mod to modify the whole house. Like, let's start in the bathroom, let's start in the bedroom, and then allow the client to want to be, oh, do you want to look at other places? Do you want to look at your porch? How about your backyard? How are you doing that? How are you getting in and out of your car? So I find that I get the opening sometimes through networking with other professionals, and then in the home, how to open up that conversation.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like it's a lot of working with the client, and having them lead with identifying their priorities, and then them building confidence with you in the solutions that you're working with them to achieve. And then they can move on to other areas, right?
Right. Because people are always, especially older adults, are afraid that you're going to come in and wreck their house.
Mhm.
And they may not even want you there anyway, because it may make them feel insecure about their personal level of independence, and that someone might want to put them in a skilled nursing facility. So and even on workers' comp situations, people are nervous that you might be coming in and want to change everything.
Mhm.
And I think as an OT, when we look at activities and performance roles and things like that, people relax because they realize you're not just throwing out stuff in their house or making a judgment on how they live.
It's interesting because really what you're talking about is kind of that shared decision making, right? That it's a
Yes.
collaborative, shared, it's not, I'm the expert. So, and I see a lot of this with therapists coming in and wanting to get into this area. And sometimes it's like, well, I'm the expert. Here's what I'm going to tell you what to do. But also, it seems like you're taking more time and developing that relationship. And it's not just I'm in and I'm out, right? And I think people have this misconception that home mods, I can just come in and do an assessment and I'm done. And I
Right.
don't hear that. I hear that this is an ongoing relationship, that this is I'm coming back and making sure the things that I recommended work, and I'm really problem solving with you together to come up with
Yes.
solutions.
Yes. And with that is also staying mindful, which the chat has helped me do, that it's also a business. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like how to care for people and not be there 5 hours and it all be
Yes,
free, you know, where you're
great.
making $20 an hour. How to,
Or not even.
or not even, and how to set up follow-up appointments, how to, you know, walk that tightrope of, I need to be a profitable business, and I want to do the best by my client and be a collaborator with them.
Hmm. Yes, because if you can't maintain a profitable business, you can't be there to help people, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the reality of that piece. But by the same token, your business is not going to be profitable if clients aren't perceiving you providing value and
Right.
solving their problems, right?
Exactly.
And it sounds to me, you keep mentioning the chat. For people who don't know what we mean, it's the Certified Home Accessibility Therapist program. But it sounds to me like that helped you a lot with building the confidence and giving you some opportunities and direction to move forward.
Yes. And to take my clinical skills and build a business.
Okay, yeah, that's a big difference, right? Two very
That's
different
huge.
things.
And that's not taught in the CAPS courses for OTs or anybody. It's not taught in most of the other um, credentialing things out there that I found.
So then based on that, if if you had someone as a therapist come to you with advice to move into the areas of home mods, where would you recommend they start, and what would be the first things you'd say to start looking at and putting together?
Well, of course, I would recommend signing up for the chat, um, because doing that is the best first step, because that helps you then organize the follow through. And then I would also say to people, this is not a quick jump from your day job that maybe you're feeling unsatisfied in, to just make a big switch and build a business out of thin air like that. This will take you some time, and you have to kind of look at, can you afford that time? Do you need to keep up your day job while you're building this? It's a building of relationships, and that takes time.
That networking in your community, knowing who the connections are, having them learning to trust you and know that you're going to be there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and to do that, meet them for lunch, find out about their business, make a phone call. I've been finding, and it takes time. It takes
Mm-hmm.
time away from your day, but really, meeting meeting in person for a coffee, for a quick lunch, has been my most successful networking experience.
And what people don't realize is the range of people within your community that you can connect to, because I heard you mention a range. You talked about personal injury attorneys, you talked about guardians, you talked about daughters, you talked about case managers. Who else have you found in your community? Because for me, it was a slightly different set in my community. So I think, how would you talk to therapists about finding who in their community to reach out to?
I would look at where they are right at that moment. Who's around them? Are they working in a hospital system? Can they connect with the social workers in their hospital? I would start, as people would say, with the low hanging fruit. If you're a school based therapist, I would connect with the special ed case lead teachers. I would start connecting with different nonprofits in your area. We have one in Georgia called Focus, and it's Family of Children Under Stress. So
Mm-hmm.
that's for medically fragile children. And they may not have long term disabilities, they may have a short term disability from some treatment. Maybe they need a shower chair or something. For the adults, I would just start simple where you are. In Atlanta, people are very connected to their religious organizations. So I've also networked with churches and synagogues and mosques that seem to be reaching out to their older adults, and see if I can come in and, help them in any way, give a little talk on fall prevention. Or for me, it's what's off the shelf assistive technology. There are also your, uh, what do they call them? Disease specific organizations like the MS Society, ALS Society, Alzheimer's, dementia caregiver,
Stroke.
stroke. I, once you start looking, it just starts spreading out.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about myths, but we only talked mainly about the payment myth. We did talk a little bit about it's a one-off and you're out of there kind of myth. Is there any other myths or false assumptions that you would like people to think
To know
about?
that, okay, these are some things that I have found to be true that go against commonly held beliefs and philosophies. I leave the throw rugs.
I with me, not every throw rug needs to go either.
Not every throw rug needs to go. If it's low pile and it's like a heavy oriental carpet that they've been walking over nonstop for decades, I leave the rug.
My rug tape may come out, but
Right. Right. Um, one of my other things is not everybody needs an accessible shower. They don't all need a walk-in zero entry shower. Sometimes a piece of equipment is the better decision rather than the remodel. And for my people with paralysis, this is my other thing that I tell people, do a bake sale, do a car wash, I don't care. Get yourself an overhead lift system. I can't use those Hoyer lifts. I find they're miserable. Even the electric ones. They're
oh,
so awkward
absolutely.
for me to get in and around the wheel. Pay, it's in and around.
Use GoFundMe, Live Hope. What is it? Live Hope
Yes.
Love
Love
groups.
for the
Love Hope, whatever.
$5,000 or so, you can get a simple or less an overhead lift system. It will get your loved one in and out quicker. The other thing is transport chairs can add quality of life. It doesn't have to be a nice quality manual chair. A transport chair sometimes that someone is not independent in, but you can put in the back of your car easily and get your loved one out to dinner with you, it's worth it. So those are some of my harped on myths.
I think we are talking a little bit there about like that balancing the client's and family's personal goals with some of our clinical recommendations. And I think the other thing we look at when we look at that is the aesthetics, right? People
Absolutely.
don't want their home looking like a hospital. And the good news is now there's a lot more options out,
Yes.
right? That do that. But I think, like you said, not having to always make the big changes is one thing that does that. Um, let me see what else we have here.
Oh, and if I can just add one quick thing, if you end up, I worked at the Shepherd Center, which is a catastrophic care hospital for brain injury and spinal cord injury. So I'm very familiar with paralysis and TBI in that level. I have found, contrary to my belief when I started there, um, a lot of my clients will have a nicely modified bathroom, and they've found that actually taking a shower is too much effort. So sometimes I counsel people, like, I know you're newly injured, you're a year out, and you just want to get into the shower. But a lot of times people with a high level cervical injury, they find that getting they'd rather just have a quick bed bath and go and get dressed for the day. And that rolling into a shower like they used to take every morning is no longer of interest or use to them. That's another
Yes.
thing I've learned.
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly when you're looking at high level injuries and everything takes so much extra effort, the fact that very quickly with caregiver assistance, I can be up and doing something, right? With my electronic systems or whatever I have versus all the time and effort it takes and the multiple transfers and stuff involved in
Yes.
banking. Um, I think the last thing I just like to ask you is what keeps you motivated to keep learning and doing more in this field, and what resources have you found to help you with that?
Um, I must admit, I'm a continuing education junkie. When I don't know something, it's frustrating and I want to learn more about it. So for me, it's been finding people who are more knowledgeable than I am and attending their workshops, attending their online Zoom events, people who've been in the field longer than myself. And then what I love about home modifications and probably about OT in general is I love the detective work, and that in home mods, you're looking at vision, you're looking at cognitive processing, auditory processing, mobility, functional mobility, equipment, environmental aspects. There's so much to learn. I feel like there's never enough time for everything that I want to know about, because there are just so many different niches. And what I would recommend to people is, because it is so vast, pick an area that you're passionate about and focus on that. Is that people with dementia? Is that Parkinson's? People with stroke recovery? And learn as much as you can and focus on that area and that niche in home mods. Because you can get lost in the vastness of it all. And especially if you're a younger therapist and you haven't had that much time out in the field, become an expert in an area that you're passionate about.
Has the Home Safety Pros, which is our chat grad group, has that been helpful?
That's been amazingly helpful. One, I get to network with other therapists from different parts of the United States and find out what they're doing, what things have worked for them. It's also interesting to connect on what's frustrating you. Is that the same stuff that's frustrating me? Oh, I figured out how to solve that in my area. Had you thought of trying this? That grad group is a wonderful support group that keeps it fresh and keeps me from getting bogged down in the nitpicky stuff that it takes to run a business and be profitable and successful. And I like the advanced coursework that's offered under the chat. You know, the hoarding program, the disaster preparedness, I've marketed that to a builders group. And they're very interested in talking to me more about that. So I find that these extended educational programs have really been of great benefit to me.
Good. Anything else you want to end with, or you want to leave people with that you haven't mentioned, or you want to reinforce?
I think I want to reinforce that this is not for free. This is a business. You have to invest in yourself. You have to invest in your business. And I was doing this for a long time before I feel that I actually created a business and was profitable. And the difference was having a business mentor and actually going through the chat. And that's not just a free advertisement. That's the truth. I've been doing this for 25 years. And it really took me getting a business mentor to actually get my feet under me to make this work.
And who did you use for your business mentor?
Sue Doyle.
I was hoping that's who you were referring to, but I was like,
Sue Doyle and the chat. And it's really helped me organize myself, break it down into manageable parts, because starting a business can be quite overwhelming. And that's what I would leave people with.
Yeah. And I think I would leave people with, while it has periods of times of being overwhelming, I want to go back to those rewarding periods
yes,
that we had. And that this is normal for any business owner, right? Yes. And particularly when we're starting off. Even, you know, I meet with mentors in businesses all across the spectrum, from accounting to financial to construction. in my mentorship groups, and the same things apply in the same stages. And that part of being a business owner that we're not prepared for.
Yes, yes. But I really love it. I love the problem solving in people's homes and making a concrete difference, not just rehabbing them in a clinic where you don't see them how they live.
Yes.
And I find it so, I hear therapists getting burnt out and leaving the field. And to me, there's just so much more to learn and so much more to be invigorated about um, in this home modification, because you can go in 1,000 different areas.
To me, it feels like the real OT, like
Yes.
what I grew up imagining in school that I was going to do as an OT. Well, like I did as an OT, 45 years ago. And it was kind of just seeing the difference it made in people's lives. And Erin, I see that when we're working, and you bring your cases and we talk about that. And so it's just so great to see where you've gone with that. So thank you for our
You're welcome.
time.
You're welcome.